So, welcome to the Elizabethan Maps with Guests channel. And we are with, honestly, two guests that are giving me goosebumps right now. We have Brian Steele and Tom, Midwest Miniatures guy, Nelson. Guys, thanks for joining me today. I really mean that.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure.
So, if you don't know this out there, these guys are professional painters. They have incredible careers in the industry, and we're kind of tied in that we all painted the GaryCon dragons this year. We all got given one to paint for auction. We all went off into our various little dark corners of the world, and we just did our thing. And we kind of then came back together, and we all kind of like saw each other's work, and I'm really excited to talk to them today. And because of that, I gotta be honest with you, I feel like I don't know how much coloring on my map I'm gonna get done today. Because I just want to talk to these dudes. I just want to talk to them about their techniques, their paints, their brushes, and everything else, okay? And I'm sure you have questions for them. But before I get too far, let them introduce themselves. Brian, tell us about yourself, man.
So I am a jack of all trades when it comes to the game industry. I started back in 2002 with Privateer Press and have jumped on. I've been behind the scenes, marketing, voiceovers, writing, designing, development. Even came down to doing some art, like art direction for one of the games I was working for. I've been all over the place when it comes to the game industry, and I love it. So, I it is basically my life. Gaming. I'm just a giant nerd, and about a year ago, I started a YouTube channel called Tales from a Professional Nerd, in an effort to basically kind of have a video journal that allows me to just sort of grab a topic and run my mouth for about an hour, and hopefully people listen and enjoy it.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, and that channel's cool. And by the way, for both of you, I will at the end of this stream sort of say, okay, so how can people get in touch with you? But if you ever want to put your contact details into the chat on Twitch, please feel free. And if you want to plug yourselves, please feel free. You're both awesome dudes, and people need to know how to get in touch with you. Tom, tell us about you.
Well, my name is Tom Nelson. I run a little Facebook page called Midwest Miniature Guy. I've been painting miniatures for at least 20 years now. My wife actually got me into it when we were newly married and not a lot of, disposable income. And at the time, it was pretty cheap to get into it. Um, so that's the basic gist. I've painted for a lot of folks all over the world, and run like I said, I run the Facebook page. I do have a YouTube channel, Twitch, which I'm still kind of getting used to. And I do live stream painting every Sunday night from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Central Time, where I sit down and I try to get through at least a figure, while you can ask me questions about painting or gaming or life in general, and kind of go from there. I've painted for Luke and Ernest Gygax, Tim Kask, and those are kind of like the big ones that folks that I've painted for. Otherwise, it's been mostly, either local folks, characters, and armies and things like that. So that's kind of my deal. I'm not fully in the gaming industry to an extent like Brian is, but I enjoy it. I've played D&D and Pathfinder and old Star Wars, D6, and the first edition of Vampire the Masquerade. I've been gaming, I think, since probably 91. So 91, 92, somewhere in there. I was in high school. And but yeah, I'm actually sitting at my painting station right now. It looks like Brian's doing a little painting too, and I might
Figured it made
grab
sense.
some brushes and
And
paints.
virtually I kind of am too. I mean, I'm
Right,
painting a
right.
map, but we're kind of all doing the same thing. And by the way, BRYAN, I saw your message about everyone needs to lean into their mics. Tom, Brian, you don't need to
Okay.
do that. I just adjusted some layers in my Stream OBS. Let me know if that helped, okay? I just upped that just a little bit. Um, let me tell you why I invited these guys here tonight, okay? I'm gonna bring this up, and I want you to see this because this is what it's all about right here. And I'm gonna zoom out just a little bit. So right here in the chat right now, we've got 3 GaryCon Dragons, and the top left is Tom Nelson's dragon, and I'm gonna zoom in. I'm gonna pan around these a little bit. The top right, we've got Brian Steele's dragon. By the way, Brian, that's a totally cool last name, dude. And at the bottom, we have my dragon. And I'm going to zoom in just for a moment. Now, there is going to be up in the chat on a periodic basis a link to high-res versions of these pictures, okay? And you can click that little link and you'll be able to actually download the full package of these photos. So one thing I noticed, guys, is so we've all painted the GaryCon Dragon, and we had some things that we approached in the same way, and some things that we approached in a different way. Tom, you've got a darker base to yours, but you've then definitely gone in with a strong white. Brian, you've gone in with like this blue base, and you've gone in with heavy white, and yours looks frosty, dude, like it's covered in snow. Well, I guess I went full on electrical, and I've got like this white blue thing going on. So we all kind of started a little bit differently. Tom, tell us about just the base of like your dragon. Where was your head at? What were you hoping to do? Where was your vision? And therefore, what was your foundation for getting this done? Like, where were your base colors for this thing?
Base colors. I believe I actually primed it in the Badger Airbrush Stynylrez Gray, and then kind of went from there. I know that I knew that I didn't want to try and copy other folks' paint jobs. I still wanted to stick with what the artwork looked like, which was phenomenal. And I don't remember who did that. Melissa, I don't. You probably know who did the artwork for it, but I kind of went a little different way where I wanted to have some of the green that was on that dragon that you saw. That was like veins through the wings. I'd add a little bit of that in through the body, along with the nice light blue chest all the way through the tip of the tail. And I noticed that a few other people were just kind of painting the rest of the dragon just kind of either gray white and I wasn't sure if or blue white, and so I wasn't sure if I wanted to go with a warm white, which would have been using browns. I think that might have been an interesting take on it, but instead I did kind of go more of a aquamarine color, which I actually glazed into the scales. And I'm looking at it right here so that I can actually talk about it.
And
So
I'll bring it up right here too on the chat.
Oh, you still have yours?
I still have mine. Yeah, I told because
Yeah, I have mine too. Don't feel bad, Tom. I have mine too. Yeah.
I just told Luke and John Popson, the guy that sculpted it, that I'm just going to hang on to it because, well, I'll just bring it next year to GaryCon when it's on. I would much rather hand deliver this than mail it. I mean,
yeah, I thought they were going to auction them off this year, but I think they decided that they were going to do it next year. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm just going to hand deliver it. I feel a lot safer that way.
I hang on to it. So I kind of actually for the bone and for the horns and the teeth and the claws, I actually used the what was it called, the Reaper Bone Triad, which I really like. And then I added a little bit more white into the final highlights to get the talon colors and the horns and everything just a little bit brighter. And
I really actually do like the bone on the horns. I think I mean, there's so much of this dragon that this almost seems to be doing you a disservice. But those horns are gorgeous, man. I mean, they really
Thank you.
are. I really love them.
Thank you.
And I should
So,
say,
yeah,
Tom Nelson mentioned this before, but this is a sculpt by effing cool miniatures. John Popson, effing cool miniatures, and it is effing cool, and they're
it's
great team.
It's one of his best works. I mean, I love the Pirate Queen from last year. My friend Charles Urbach is the artist for that, and I loved what John did with it, and I was very thrilled to be able to paint up one of those and get it. I think it got auctioned off last year. I didn't get the chance to go last year. So
Yeah, I believe it did. I believe it did.
Yeah, I mean, nothing. Everybody who put stuff in at the auction, I don't think any of them came back unsold. So
unsold. Okay. Well, it was either that or Ernie was going to keep it in his collection. So.
which Brian has just done. Brian just donated a piece to the Ernie category.
To the Ernie collection.
Right.
So I sent the picture to Luke and I was like, hey, I need an address to send this to. Unfortunately, because my real estate for storage in my studio is thin. So I knew if I kept it for a year, I would end up either accidentally breaking it and then crying myself to sleep that night, or it would end up being like covered in dust. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna send it to where it needs to be. And I asked Luke, and I was like, all right, what address am I sending it to? Obviously, I'm not sending it to him in California. And he goes, oh no, send it to Ernie. And so I shot him the picture. And I was like, all right, this is what's on its way. And he goes, well, you may have just given that to Ernie. He's like, that might.
It's in his cabinet now, man. He's taking photographs. It's at home.
Yeah. It has found its home. That was not going to get auctioned.
He was way too proud, way too quickly. It's not on a shelf. It's not just next to the box. It's in his display cabinet. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So that's a great segue, though, Brian, to your dragon, which I have up on screen right now.
Okay.
Actually, one thing I've noticed about both of you guys, you both went with the almost the bone brown tail, hook stinker, which I hadn't noticed until right now. But Brian, you've got this frosty white, and one thing I love is even the head palette has got this slick, partly melted ice look. Tell us about your thought process when you decided on the palette of this dragon, because I know you put a lot of thought into it.
So when I saw the original art, I was like, I want to do something to make it stand out. It's because it's not just a white dragon, and it's also not just a blue dragon. It is this Thunderfrost thing. And so I had recently, I'm going to totally do a product nom to somebody who sends me stuff. There's a company that makes paint called Turbo Dork that they specialize in off color metallics and color shifted paints. So if you look at it in one angle, it's blue. If you look at another angle, it's green. And I've fallen in love with them, but for the most part, I've only ever really used them for kind of highlights here and there. And so as soon as I saw the dragon, I was like, this is my opportunity to grab 3 or 4 of those and go to town on that kind of the white blue, spectrum with it. And so that's why the wings and the back of the head and the scales are all pearlescent. And if you look at them, the stills don't do it justice, unfortunately. If you look at them at a different angle, the wings and the ridge back, they go from a white to an almost kind of bluish, like a mirror blue. If you kind of give it a twist.
Say the name of those paints again, because you did it on your YouTube channel. You just did it now.
Turbo Dork. They literally just sent me a box of stuff yesterday. I did an Instagram video when I was really tired yesterday, and I made a little song that was like Turbo Dork, because I got a happy box, and right now with everybody in lockdown, you have to make yourself happy in every way. So I used a lot of Cloud9 and Dabba D. the names of their paints are ridiculous. Like from spicy meatball to the ground is lava.
All right.
Like they are ridiculous, but like this is one of those colors, that kind of that shine, that mirror that I was talking about. But yeah, they're super cool. I love them. You know, product nom, whatever. But as soon as I realized I wanted to do that dragon with those kinds of scales, I knew that I had to build up as light as possible, because unfortunately, the lighter of the Turbo Dorks paints, they take 2 or 3 coats over even a light color to really do what they're supposed to do. And so I knew if I was going to do that kind of dark blue or the green veins like Tom did from the art, I was going to have a hard time covering those up and get the effect that I wanted. And then I did the blue mirror Turbo Dork stuff on the eggs, which I got to say, your eggs, Alyssa, the little pine cone style eggs, I almost wish I wouldn't have seen them first, because they were awesome. And like I thought I liked it. They have that kind of natural. They kind of look like pine cones, and that's.
I think we're gonna definitely talk about the eggs, guys. We're definitely gonna talk about the eggs, because we all took a slightly different approach on the eggs. And if everyone's wondering what Brian's talking about, it's that guy right down there. We have a dragon egg, okay? There's a little dragon popping out of that, and I'm going to show you photos of that right now. And we all took a slightly different approach. By the way, it is the cutest thing ever. I posted a picture on Facebook of this little dragon egg with a little dragon popping out of it on the edge of my finger. It has to be one of my favorite things ever. This is how I went for it. I had a slightly different agenda, guys, in so much that I had done the GaryCon map, and I was trying to tie into that palette. So I was going to go with the electric blue. That's what I went for. So I actually started off with your usual undercoat of white, and I painted it this pretty light blue, and then I washed the whole thing in a blue wash. And then I started building my colours on the top of it. So I think I ended up with way more of blue. I've got almost like this blue dragon thing going on. But knowing that this is a frost dragon, I then started to pull in some of the whites a little bit on this. This is the egg that Brian is referring to right here. Let's talk about the eggs for a moment, guys. The reason why I went with this pine cone, and I was actually going more towards an orange, is because I wanted the orange to contrast with the blue. I didn't want to put a blue underneath my blue on a blue base. You know, I felt it would blend in. So that was the only reason why I went with this particular color right here, this combination. But then you gotta have a blue dragon climbing out of the egg, and he is the cutest thing I've ever seen. I mean, look at that little guy.
Super adorable.
He's so
Joe
adorable.
did a great job on those eggs.
So Tom, you went with this blue egg. Brian went with a blue egg. Brian's done something a little bit different, though. Talk about your egg. By the way, this is Tom Nelson, Midwest Miniature Guy. This is his dragon. Beautiful base. Tom.
Oh, so pretty.
This is like tundra. This is. I see elements of almost melting tundra here. Like this corner right here. It's almost like that little bit of a permafrost that isn't so frosty anymore. That's what I started getting out of this.
I definitely wanted to go, like, I think I'd seen Brian's, I'd seen yours, and I was just kind of trying to finish mine up, and I wanted it to have that snowy effect, but I also wanted it to still have, like, if I was looking at the original artwork, there was still a little bit of browns and grays. So I actually went through and I painted the entire base first before I even put the eggs on. And so I did I kind of, what I wappleized it, if anybody knows who James Wapple is.
I would hope the whole world knows who James Wapple is.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. So I kind of took some browns, I took some grays, I took some greens, I took some blues and purples, and just kind of started painting the base till I got where I wanted it to be, and then I even used like a couple of different primers, like on the top of the rocks where that the dragon is actually standing on. I used like two different primers. I used a gray primer or a blue gray primer up at the top, and like a brown reddish primer down at the bottom.
Cool.
And then the base was kind of that brown red primer as well. And then I kind of just started, like I said, kind of just slapping paint on there a little bit and moving it around and seeing where the shadows and everything was going to fall. And then once that was dried, that's when I started. I'm like, well, I don't want it to just be snow. I want there to be some more texture. So the stuff that I use is, let's see if I can find it here. It's the Citadel Technical Valhallan Blizzard. It's this great kind of grainy snow effect, and I really like it. And so I just kind of started plopping that around, and again, trying to get, like you were saying, Alyssa, that kind of it's melting, but there's still like, I mean, I live in Minnesota, and at the time there was snow all over the place, and so I kind of just like going outside, looking around, like, oh, okay, yeah, it kind of falls like this, and there's some grass poking up here, and whatever, and that's what I liked about the I used the Army Painter Tundra tufts.
Okay, I was going to ask
just
about
kind of
tufts
place
later on.
those.
So I was going to ask about snow and tuft. So you hit both
Yeah.
of those points right there.
Yeah, I just wanted some texture. Basically, I want it to look. Somebody was talking about this early on Facebook, but I wanted my dragon to look alive.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it not so much realistic, but I want it to be there. This could come out and move. This is a creature. Even though it's in a fantasy game, I want there to be that movement to, with
Well,
it.
part of that is the base, right? And I've watched
Yeah.
Brian Steele's videos, and I know he gives a shit about bases. I'm just saying.
Oh,
The
yeah,
guy was quite overt in that subject matter, if Brian, you don't mind me saying.
I'm passionate about basing, yes.
yeah.
And this is a nice base, and you're the only one of the three of us that actually put little tufts on there.
Yep. Yeah. Like I said, I like grasses. I like being able to throw certain things in there, and I think if I'd had, well, I still have time, I can still throw something on there, but I didn't want it to be overblown. Like I've got some.
Sometimes less
really
is more,
nice.
right?
Yeah, definitely less is more. Because I was thinking about, I could put a little bit of some autumn flocking in there and have some other pops of color. And I thought, no, let's leave the base as is. It looks good. I don't want to dink around with it anymore, and just have it be. It's this snowy. It's thawing, but there's still snow on the ground, and it's still cold, and but something has disturbed the dragon, certainly, and it's protecting its little nest there.
I think you nailed it, man. I think you nailed it. Brian, you went almost in the opposite direction. You went full on frosty cold. What was your snow? How did you get your snow?
So my snow is a combination of ground glass, baking soda, and clear Elmer's glue.
Can I stop you at ground glass? What?
Yes.
What do you mean ground glass? That's a thing you can buy?
Yeah, hobby shops, like train stores.
Okay.
People will sometimes use it for stained glass making, as a filler. But basically, you can get it almost looks like salt. Don't eat it, obviously, it's bad for you. But it adds just a tiny little bit of sparkle to I don't put much.
Which would be appropriate for snow? Okay.
But then basically, I just sort of I grab a like a Dixie cup, and I start mixing it until it has about the same consistency as toothpaste. And then you sort of dollop it on in places, and within about an hour or so, you can kind of form it into like little stalactites and things, dripping down rocks and whatnot. If you make it too thin, it'll end up being just flat. It'll have no shape whatsoever. It'll just kind of pool. I mean, it still looks okay, but it's not the same. Originally, I wanted to have more rock showing, but when I went to go do the little bit of baking soda, like I wanted to do some spots on the ground, the flat parts, my glue got a little overzealous, and it spread way faster than I anticipated. I don't know if I just had my humidity wrong or whatever, but it went a little crazy. And so that's why it went from originally being a very rocky, snowy top to a snowy top with some rocks.
Did you intend to bring it down the front of the GaryCon name here?
Yes.
That was a beautiful touch, man. I love that.
That was actually done before I did the rest of the base.
Yeah, that almost made the name plaque be part of it. It was beautiful.
That's kind of what I was hoping for. Yeah. And then the eggs, because I know you did some water effect on your eggs as well, some kind of yolk spilling out. I did some blue resin that again ran way too. It was supposed to just be kind of a little bit of goop around the eggs, but if you look close, it runs all the way to that first rock.
Yeah, so I see it. I see it. This is like a pool of yolk.
That egg was very juicy. It hit that baking soda and just ran.
So what was the what is this resin here? Just for our audience right now, what is this?
It is. I can find it.
And by the way, Tom, just so you know, Princess Strega really loves your dragon.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. If she ever wants to, she can go back. She can go onto my Facebook page, Midwest Miniature Guy, and watch through. I think she goes back probably to the beginning of March. She can actually watch through all of the videos because I posted them up there of me painting it.
There you go, Princess. Go on over there and hit them up with a follow. So, Brian, this resin.
So the resin, it's the blue realistic water from Scenorama.
Scenorama.
Again, I do a lot of shopping at like trading stores and stuff to fill up my.
I gotta be honest with you. While it may be like little too much from what you were trying to accomplish, it looks really good.
I got the same stuff.
Oh, I'm the only one apparently not using this stuff. I'm really actually. I mean, you get this sense of this little pool of, well, in this case, yolk, but of this water. It's leveled out beautifully, you know.
I'm happy with the result. It's that whole sometimes you don't want to know how the sausage is made. Like I think if people looking at it, they'll go, "Oh, that's awesome! The egg just kind of splattered everywhere." And for me personally, I go, "Yes, that's exactly what happened."
I did the same snow as you, Brian. The baking soda and Elmer's glue.
Mm-hmm.
I mixed it pretty thick. I didn't even know about the ground glass, so I don't have that in mine. And I went light. I went light with mine because it was almost like I was going a little bit between you and Tom on this one. Yeah. Tom is going tundra, a little bit melty. You've gone. Honestly, your dragon makes me cold every time I look at it. I try to go somewhere in between the two. And you can see this little sneak peek of the yolk that I went with right there. I basically did a water effects from Scenic Express, and I mixed in some yellow in with it, and I actually put it at the top of my egg, and I painted it down the crack, and I just let it drip down to wherever it was going to fall.
Nice.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
So, guys, let's talk supplies, all right? Let's talk supplies. I'm going to turn these dragons off just for the moment. Brushes. And Tom, I'm going to hit you up first, okay?
So many different brushes.
But do you have a go-to brand?
Yes. I think a lot of people have their go-to brands. Mine definitely has been, and it has been for quite a few years. It's my handy dandy Windsor Newtons.
Stephen.
Um, I love these, um, and I've kind of shied away from the smaller sizes. I've actually been leaning more towards like a size 3 or 4. They just hold a lot more paint. I can still get a real nice point on them, and they take a little bit more punishment, I guess, than like a size 1 or a size 0. I'll still use those sizes if I'm doing like super little fiddly parts, but even with the size 4 that I'm using, I'm able to do buttons and eyes and buckles and stuff like that. So that's kind of that's my go-to brand. And then of course
That's one
once
thing I've actually honestly noticed, Tom, over the years, is sometimes smaller is not necessarily better, right?
yeah,
When it comes to
yeah,
detailing, it's like, yeah, okay, you've got a brush that's 2 pixels in size. That's cool, and it looks precise, but it doesn't hold the paint, so you
yep.
can't get a result from it.
Yeah, either and that I mean, besides not holding the paint, it'll dry on your brush before you even get it on the model.
Right, right.
So, but yeah, and once they've kind of gone to pasture, I turn them into dry brushes and just keep using them until
I'm actually gonna break away from the screen real quick, and I'm gonna show what Tom is talking about right now, right here. I have a whole bunch, and some of these are good brushes, but they're not now. These are dry brushes. That's what he's
Yeah.
talking about. When they're done, you can still use them, just for other purposes.
Exactly. Yeah, I've got a few that have turned into not even dry brushes anymore. Now they're just glue brushes.
Glue
You know,
brushes, just basing brushes, just
racing brushes. Yeah,
yeah.
especially if you've got like the $3 pack of the same size brush. Just use them up. beat them up. That's what they're kind of there for. So, but yeah, that's those are my brushes that I like to use. I love the Winsor Newtons.
Winsor Newton is a name I hear a lot. They're a good set of brushes, without a doubt. What about you, Brian? Do you have a chosen?
So most of my detail brushes are going to be Winsor Newton Series 7s. I've got one Raphael that I only use occasionally because it's one of those break glass in case of eyeball. It's really the only one that I use for like highlighting eyes and things. But other than that, yeah, it's mostly Winsor Newtons for like the heavy lifting. But I have a ton of the Games and Gears brushes, the sets that they do at Adepticon, the like the little self storage, these doodads.
Games and Gear. I've not heard of those.
They make some games, they make some brushes, they make some stuff. I would be remiss to say, they're not a sponsor or anything weird like that, but the guy who owns the company, every time I go to Adepticon every year, he always gives me a set of brushes to use on videos and stuff, which is one of the reasons why I do have as many as I do. But they are good mid-road brushes. Like they're not they do not handle like my Windsors or my Raphael, but they'll do the work. The big one that I have not seen anyone else make anything like it, and it's the reason why I keep going back to them. Is they make it's called a katana, which is
You have my interest.
it is a silicone. I'm gonna get real close. It is a silicone tip. It is not a brush. It's like a finger.
Wow.
It's because it doesn't actually carry paint. Oh, so there we go. It doesn't carry paint in of itself. You can almost use it like a quill. So it's really good for if you want to do like individual dots or lettering. You have to treat it like a quill. I mean, like you have to. You're gonna keep going back to that ink. You're gonna keep going back to what you're doing, but it's it does the job. It doesn't splay out. It doesn't hook at the end because it's a solid piece of rubber.
I find it really good actually to for using as a little bit of a sculpting tool. You can put a little bit of petroleum jelly on there with your either liquid green stuff or regular green stuff, and do gap filling or resculpting if you need to.
I've got for my sculpting stuff, I've got a whole other kit, but
I could see that for like the scale 75.
Absolutely.
Like filler, because that's very liquidy. I could see that. I could see that. Absolutely. As long as you clean it up after the fact. So, I use these guys.
Dry brushes. If there is.
I use dry brushes for that. Absolutely. So
if there's anything the Games and Gears brushes do after time is they make for amazing dry brushes of different sizes.
That's fair. That's fair. I use Artist Opus. No, I'm like Artist Opus, like I'm a freaking product sponsor right now. That was way too product placement. I felt guilty doing that. They are not paying me. I wish they freaking were. I use Artist Opus. Have you guys ever used them?
I haven't. Although a buddy of mine just ordered a bunch, and I told him that I was going to buy one from him to give it a shot. So
I am very genuinely curious about what you think of it when you get it. Because for me, I've used a whole bunch of different brushes in my time. When I picked up an Artist Opus, I was like, oh, this is different. This is nice. So I would actually, I'm going to contact those guys. I mean, I have no pull with them, like, at all. But I would actually love for you, too, to be able to actually use those brushes, because I really value your opinion. I don't use anything else right now, except, there is a set of brushes called One. This is a $20 pack. It had something like 50 brushes in it. It's from China, so it's probably got COVID on it right now, so I'm going to die. But the reason why I bring this up is that someone that does painting classes was talking about these and saying that they survive the classes and they have an amazing point that stays. And I was like, all right, I'm curious. And bugger me, he's right. They have this amazingly sharp point that I can't seem to get rid of. And I actually find myself using this One. Smart choice makes you happy, apparently. Made in China.
Can you find those at like any hobby shop then?
I don't know. I got mine on Amazon. Because it was one of those like Reaper conversations where someone was like, what brushes do you use? And it was the conversation that you and I are having right now. And someone popped up saying, I use One. They never degrade. They are awesome. And like the whole micro thread appeared where people were, oh yeah, they're awesome. To such a point where I was like, I'll try them? And they're actually pretty good. I was actually really surprised. Now, okay, you get... You know when you get a brush and you have this one hair that comes out away from the rest, and it's like, well, I can't use that. Yeah. Right? They have a little bit of that going on.
Sometimes that is on purpose. That's called a guide hair.
You have me intrigued, Brian.
It's more for people who do like watercolors.
Okay.
Because that way, when you touch your brush to the canvas or the paper or anything like that, you're not getting a whole brush full of your pigment, so you can start where you're working. You know where you're going to go, and you can watch your bleed. That it doesn't. A guide hair doesn't help us as miniature painters. But if for like traditional media, like flat bleeding papers and things, the guide hair is important. I always snip mine off if I ever see one, but.
That's why you joined the Alyssa Phaeton channel, everyone, because you learn something every freaking time. Brian, I really did not know that. I have never done watercolor.
My wife is a traditional artist. She does charcoals and graphite and all that kind of stuff.
Thank you for your wife to educating us on that one. So yeah, okay. No, that's cool, man. I really didn't know that because they actually have. Not everyone does it, but there's actually a lot of their brushes that have that. All right.
Mhm.
Well, there you go. Their $20 set of 50 brushes has a guide here. Quality. What about paints, guys? What do you use for paints?
Oh, what don't I use? Uh,
That's actually an easier question to answer.
yeah, I there's only a handful that I don't use. I don't really like the Apple Barrel or the Folk Art hobby paints. But when I first started painting, my wife and I, when she painted with me, um, and I still have a ton of them, but I love the Delta Ceramcoat paints. I mean, when I first started, they were like 88 cents a pop. I think they're a buck now or something like that. But you get, 2 ounces of paint when you're only using a drop. It's fantastic. I've been using a lot of mine for terrain pieces and basing and stuff like that now. But
That's
every
where
once
I
in a while, I'm like,
started, Tom. That's where I
yeah,
started with them. I still have a lot of those in the house.
I love these paints. But I've got Reaper Master Series paints. I've got Vallejos. I've got Army Painters. I've got Citadel Game Workshop paints, and I just got a set for Christmas of the Pro Acryls, which I've been trying out here and there from Creature Caster.
I was gonna say, is
And
that the Creature Caster paints?
yep, the Creature Caster
What do
paints.
you what do
They're
you
pretty
think of those?
nice.
I
I
haven't
have
I
to
haven't
say
picked
that
any up yet.
the I was pretty impressed with them. Somebody showed them to me at a local convention here. I think it was last year, and he's like, "Here, try this red." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I'm always looking for a good red." I'm not kidding you. Within 2 coats, you couldn't see the primer.
It's awesome.
So yeah, I was pretty impressed by them, and I'm like, well, I'll ask them. I'll ask my my in-laws. They're always uh, pretty supportive of me painting and whatever. And I'm like, well, I just want paints and brushes for Christmas. And so yeah, they got me a set of the Pro Acryls, and I've been pretty happy with them so far.
What about you, Brian? What are you down with?
Um, so I will use just about any paint that someone will hand me. Like I'll try anything once. The only, honestly, the only brand that I kind of steer away from, and that's mostly because I I find them too thin to start. I like to thin my own paints.
Hmm.
I would rather start thick and
Mm.
thin my way down to where I want to be, rather than having them start thin and then go, okay, well, this is going to take me 8 coats to work my way up to the color that's on the bottle. And that's P3. I not to besmirch my brothers over at Privateer, but I don't care for how thin those paints are. They are very, very thin. I have our local game shop is a game shop called Tier One Games. They have probably, in my honest opinion, the best hobby section I've ever seen at a game store for variety. Not necessarily like it makes the most sense, but like they've got like 17 different paint racks from different companies. There's a company that I was like, I don't even know who these guys are. Some rando German company that they do like all they do is like tank weathering,
Mm.
and he got all of these different pigments and things specifically from like historics. And so I picked up a couple of those just to kind of give them a try. I always love Mr. Justin stuff at Secret Weapon. Um, I've started trying out the MIG. Uh, they do a lot of historical stuff. Their stuff's really thin, and so I'm finding it that I don't like using it as a base coat. But they're great for like highlights, and they're awesome for like terrain coverage. Like if I don't care about squirting this giant glob in this section of base, then that's fine. But I will say one thing: MIG makes my absolute favorite varnish of all time. the Ultra Matte Lucky Sauce. I had a couple of bad. I ruined a multi-$100 commission with a spray sealer, and it cost me like several weeks worth of work, and it was a crying moment.
Actually,
it was
so
a sad,
Brian,
tearful
talk
moment.
about while you're miserable, while you're remembering that moment that made you cry. Let's talk about that a little bit more, my friend. No, but seriously, I've had similar moments. Talk about spray sealers for
I hate them.
our people here. Talk about what can go wrong with them.
So I've had two disasters with spray anything. One was just completely is my 100% my
Hey,
fault.
Green.
Like I will not. I'm not going to blame the can. I'm not going to blame anything else. It was absolutely my fault because I was storing my sealant next to my primers, and I frosted a model. I grabbed a can of spray primer because it was from the same company, and I didn't look at the label, and I just was like, oh, okay. And I'm exhausted, long night of painting, and models are finally done, and I take them out back to spray them because at that time I didn't have a spray box or anything to take care of the fumes. So just one spray and knock everything over. And the front half of a whole bunch of like D&D character commission models are now white. And there's just nothing.
Dude, you must have just like, I can't even imagine.
Oh yeah, no, it is. There's a moment where you want to throw them, where you just want to be like, I'll buy new ones, and
Right. Yeah.
and then you're like, no wait, I can strip them, I can redo this. It's just at that point you're got to call the client and say, hey, remember how I said they were going to be ready on Monday? I lied. They are going to be ready like maybe 2 Mondays after that. But that was 100% my fault. The other one, the thing that why I don't spray seal anymore is because spray sealant is so finicky based off of how long it sat on a shelf, how long it has had a chance to settle. Did it get shipped over? Is it a can that's being poured in Spain and then ships over on a container and sits in customs for a month? You have no idea the actual date of when this stuff was created, and they really only have about a 60-day lifespan before the air that the chemicals inside the bottle eventually starts to kind of gum up the works. And then what ends up happening is you either get the spray comes out too on a microscopic scale too gummy, and it catches all the humidity in the air before it hits the model, and then that's what causes a model to fog. Where it's like you've done nothing wrong. The spray sealant is clear, but your model is now kind of a weird chalky look. It's because it's caught a bunch of humidity in the air and stuck it underneath the sealer, because there's nothing you can really do to save that. I've been told that you can do like a layer of like brush on gloss sealer to try and like sort of like it eats through like the top layer of the matte sealer to let out that moisture. I've never had much luck doing it. Normally if I screw something up and it gets fogged up because I screwed something up, it just goes in the stripper and then I have to fix it. But yeah, I don't trust spray sealant anymore. It's cost me time and money. So I have tried multiple different brush-on varnishes, and this new one from MIG, this Ultra Matte Lucky Varnish, it is ridiculously thin. It looks honestly like milk when you're brushing it on. If we have time, I'm almost to the point where I can put it on a model. I might be able to show you how is.
All right.
It's ridiculous to the point where it looks like you dropped your model in like skim milk.
Maybe we'll be able to take a look at that. Princess Strega says, is chalky ever desirable? Like, if you have something that's going to do that, could you leverage it for a skeleton or an earth elemental?
if I wanted something to be chalky, I would do that technique with the paint and not the sealer, because you can't you couldn't. I don't think there's a good way for you to recreate it perfectly. Like you had a humidifier running and at exactly 18 inches away or something. I don't know if you could ever really make that happen on purpose. If you could, that'd be kind of a weird, cool niche, I suppose. But I think I would much rather just use different shades of paint and layering and make the skeleton look chalky, and then go ahead and or earth element will make it look sandy, and then do the regular varnish over the top of it.
So Tom, I've
Yes.
actually had what Brian's talking about. Now, I haven't sprayed one of my miniatures white after the fact, and if I had, I think I would quit the world, so you'd know about it. But I have used spray and had it frost everything up and like just freaking ruin shit.
Yeah.
Have you had a bad moment? And if so, explain. And otherwise, just talk about what your preferred methods of sealing a miniature is.
Sure. For the most part, if it's for any of my games, I actually don't seal them. It's that's just kind of my own preference. A lot of the stuff that we've been using has been plastic, and I haven't seen or seen a lot of the paint coming off of the figures a whole lot. If they are going to get a ton of use, then I do use a brush-on sealer. In fact, I use I actually use the Delta Ceramcoat brush-on matte sealer. I've got a big bottle of it, and that seems to work really well. I'll either put on like a gloss varnish first, a brush-on gloss varnish, and then I'll put the matte over the top of that if it specifically really needs, and it's going to be used a lot. I'll do that. When I was first starting painting and sealing everything, then I was using the Krylon spray-on sealer, and there was a couple of times where I would go to seal the figure and get the same thing that Brian and you have gotten. Now, since I live in Minnesota, we have what I like to call the two seasons. It's either hot and humid, or it's cold and frigid, and there's no humidity in the air whatsoever. We like to say, "Why do we live here when the air hurts our lungs?" But so those are our two seasons. Spring and fall, if you're ever going to do in my area, if you were going to do a spray-on sealer, those are the two seasons that would be the best, because you don't have either the super humidity or the super freezing. So I've just taken to using brush-on sealer. It's just easier. I'm down in my basement anyway. I don't want to stop, run upstairs, go outside, spray the figure, run back downstairs, and leave it outside waiting for it to dry. I just use the brush-on. It's just easier. That's what I used on the Dragon. Was a couple of coats of brush-on sealer.
I gotta be honest with you guys. So, and for everyone that's listening, so you got three people here that paint, and we paint expensive miniatures. These two guys paint for customers, and all of us have just said spray on is unpredictable. That's the bottom line. You can literally have a work of art that you are so happy with, and you will spray a sealer on it at the end. Now it's no good. That you've literally just ruined it. It can happen. It literally, and when that one moment happens, and it doesn't happen all of the time, you will be sad in your pants. Okay, I guarantee you. It literally does go that way. The brush-ons, while they're a little bit more fiddly, are more predictable. That's the bottom line.
And it ends up being a little more expensive. I mean, like one of these little bottles of Lucky Varnish, I can probably seal 20 normal, like 28 millimeter figs, 20 to 25 of those, and it costs about $5 a bottle. So it's a little more expensive, but honestly, just like with when we were talking about brushes, it, spend the money, do the right thing. You will thank yourself later when your brushes are doing what they want to do and all of your models are being sealed exactly the same way every time. It behaves the way you want it to,
And the brushes last longer and everything too. That's the thing.
as long as you take care of them.
As long as you take
Yeah.
care of them. That's
Yeah,
true.
you got to take care of them.
That's true.
Where's the?
So we have a question from the audience. Actually, we have two questions from the audience. We have a question. We have a follow-on question. All right. So Box Office Jack says, for the panel, is there a scale of miniatures you prefer to paint? 15s, 32, 75, statues? Right. I'm not sure any of us are in the market for statues, but tell me if you are. But Tom, take it away. Preferred scale.
I guess I prefer like between 25 and 32 millimeter. That's my preferred scale. I like the 75s. They're okay. But yeah, I think that between, I guess I'm gonna throw out a couple of miniature companies. I love Redbox Games figures. They're my friend Trey Manor's miniature company, and he does just a fantastic job with what I guess I would call them Norse and English and Affelheim. Those are all the different regions in his world, and I just love his sculpting. Of course, Reaper Miniatures, love those guys. Painted a ton of those, and I shouldn't forget about our local gaming miniature company here in Minnesota, which is Dark Sword Miniatures.
Oh, Dark Sword, nice stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, love Dark Sword Miniatures. Know Jim Ludwig pretty well, and he's done a heck of a job with that company and the artists and the sculptors and the painters that he's got working for him. Just a bang up job.
Is there a scale you hate, Tom?
What's that?
Is there a scale you hate? And I'll give you an easy opening, okay? Oh. I once got you two know I don't do commissions, okay? But I sometimes get involved in either helping out a friend or I got involved in Secret Santa. So you paint something for someone else, they don't even know you did it for them. And I did 6mm 1 year. 6mm Greek peltasts. Now, you both know me, I'm a detail nerd. I paint like my maps. I have to get into the details. So 6mm, for me, was not a joy. What about you, Tom?
That doesn't sound like a joy to me either. I even 15mm, I've done even just some of the familiars from some of these companies to get into the wee little things, and it's like, holy cow, my eyes, even though I'm, got a really nice light with a big magnifying glass, I think 15mm would probably be my stopping point. I couldn't go any smaller. But I don't really have like a scale that I hate. I have figures that I don't want to paint anymore, but
like what?
Egramon the Pit Fiend from Reaper. I hate that miniature. I've painted it probably 15 times, and every time I'm just like, I feel like I'm doing the same color scheme over and over again.
Why so many Pit Fiends?
There was a guy that had 3, and he was using them for his D&D games. I don't know if they were like going through hell, or I certainly did, but but yeah, he had like 3 of them, and they weren't the Bones ones either. This was before Bones came out, and so they were all full pewter figures. And
you know what? You're better off. The Bones stuff flexes too much. I do not care for it.
Yeah, I do like the Bones black. It's a little bit more sturdy. It doesn't flex nearly as much, which is nice. But Yeah, those things were like bookends, and yeah, that's the figure I think that I don't want to ever see again. But I'm sure, now that I've
Well,
said that, I'll have
yeah,
people just,
we're gonna have
can I
people
see
send them
your
to you, man.
Balrog?
Yeah, for sure.
What's your commission price for a Balrog for a
Yeah,
for a pet demon?
yeah. So, but that's the figure that I can't stand. I'm actually, Alyssa, you'd be interested in this. I think you might have seen a few already. I've been working on the figures for the Doctor Who board game.
Oh yeah, the Doctor Who stuff you're doing, man. Look, they look awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, that's been fun. Actually, so the board games are always, these are nice. They're actually a really nice size. You can kind of see them there. I think that's the fifth Doctor, seventh Doctor. No, the fifth Doctor, right there. But they got some good scale, good details on them. Actually, this last summer, got to work on the old RAFM Doctor Who figures, and they were all lead. They were like from the I think the fourth Doctor was the newest one they had in that figure line. So that was kind of fun.
Alright, Brian. Favorite scale, worst scale, and do you have a particular miniature that you never want to see again?
My favorite scale, the one I do the most is probably the 28 to 30, just because that's where most models for a lot of gamers have a lot, a pile of those. So for commissions and stuff, and I play a lot of those games as well, so I see a lot of that scale all over the place. Um, but for if I get a chance to just like kind of go ham on something, you're going to be looking at probably 75.
75. Okay.
You can get in there. Well, specifically, I like a bust. Because you get in there and that extra. You look at someone's face and go, I could just paint a face, or I can turn this goblin into a kind of a cool jungler. Give him some clown face paint. You can kind of go your own way with it beyond the scope itself. Whereas with like a 28 or a 30, if you start doing that kind of stuff a lot, it ends up you start gumming up some ends because you're adding so much more to the model that it can't shine through.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the scale very similar to you, Alyssa. I don't like doing real small, because I want to be able to add all that extra little stuff. I did a small War Master. I almost used I almost did a War Master, a small War Master army way back when, which they're like, I want to say they're either 12 or 15. They're not quite fantasy size. They're kind of half short fantasy. And I did a bunch of those, and that's about as small as I can go before I start feeling, unless it's all vehicles, but like actual like people, because then I just feel like I'm losing the opportunity to give them any kind of personality.
Personality, that's where it's at, right?
Yeah. And model I probably never want to see again. I did like 92 Wood Elf Archers in like 2 weeks. A customer was paying for just straight up tabletop. I need to be able to get to Adepticon, and they won't let me play without models. And he paid for a rush job, and I told him, I was like, they're not going to be gorgeous. You're not winning any, like I won't let them leave the studio ugly, but they're not going to win you any awards. This is definitely the chorus of the play, and that was I think 3 sculpts over and over and over and over.
That's kind of an interesting thing. So, like, do you guys have a minimum standard that you will accept? Like, I mean, would you do work for someone that said, look, I just want you to do 300 miniatures for me. Just paint them blue and dip them. and I'll pay you. Or do you like guys? I go no. I just can't do that. Do you have a minimum?
I think to an extent. I mean, I did. It seems like I did that with a client of mine who had nothing but Space Marines, and he wanted them red, white, and blue, patriotic colors, blue armor, red on the shoulder piping, and white helmets. And it got down to, again, kind of just army painting. I like to call it. You paint them a dark blue, you dry brush them a lighter blue, you do a quick highlight with a lighter blue than that. Do the quick, couple reds on the shoulder pads, and I think the most detail that I put on the soldiers anyway was probably on the helmets, just because I wanted to make sure that each one of those helmets, stood out a little bit. But then he would also ask me to paint more of like his leaders, and while most of the soldiers were probably maybe a hour paint jobs on each one, the his leaders that he wanted like 6 to 8 hours on each one to make them really stand out on the battle maps. So yeah, I try to keep my minimum to 2 hours a figure, because that then gives them a really nice character for their D&D game or whatever, and it looks good on the table too.
Right, just so you know, by the way, Brian, I think I don't know if you have some kind of feedback going on. You might have a mic picking up like partway through this chat about 5 minutes ago. People are saying when you speak, there is an echo going on, but I don't know if it's coming from your side or something else. But just so to continue the conversation, yeah. For me, at least talking about from a mapping perspective, I mean, I can relate, Tom. If I get someone that wants me to knock out this $25 map or whatever it is, it could be any subject. I'll just do a quick job. That's not me. That's not my brand. That's not what I want to try and bring into the universe. So I won't do it. I won't take it on.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I've done the army painting, and I much prefer character paint jobs. You can get into them a little bit more, at least I can anyway, to really bring their character, their personality out.
And that's what Brian was saying earlier, right? Personality. Gotta be able to add some personality to a miniature. What about you, Brian? Do you have a standard?
I'll do just about anything for money. I gotta. This is my full-time gig. Not the painting, but like just in general game related stuff. So the commission painting helps pay a lot of the bills. So if someone came to me and said specifically, hey, we need to. I want you to do. These guys are black with a white stripe down the middle of them, and here's 90 of them. I'll do it. I'm not going to advertise it. It's not going to end up on my Instagram. I'm not going to be like, hey, check out this cool zebra thing I did. But I'll do it. Yeah, if that's all they can afford, that's fine. And I hate to sound, mercenary about it, but I generally, when I talk to a client, I'll give them different scales. I'll say what minis we're looking at. How do you want it? Tabletop standard. You want it to have a couple of bells and whistles. You want it to be a centerpiece to the army. If it's in case of like a role-playing game figure, it doesn't have something special on it. Like, does your character have a cool tattoo, or do you want me to shave off the weapons and sculpt a new bow on their back? Because I do professional sculpting as well. Do I need to get rid of their hair and give them a new hairstyle? These are things that you'll end up paying for. But if that's what it is, then so be it. But yeah, no. If someone comes to me and if that's their need, if their need is, I did all of the minis out of the Ghostbusters board game for a local client, and most of the models they wanted to be like just tabletop. They don't even need faces. It's just get all the colors covered, wash them, seal them, be done. But then for the purposes of the Stay Puft guys, I think on my Facebook you could find they wanted the two Stay Puft Marshmallow Men to really stand out, so they paid extra, and those are their centerpiece models. I probably took a week on each Stay Puft.
So talking of which, guys, and we don't have to answer this, okay? But we have had a genuine question from the audience where Noble Dwarf has asked, do you feel comfortable talking about prices online? And if you do, they're interested in knowing what your rates are, because Tom, you've painted for me. I know you painted miniatures for me. I have a lot of your miniatures in my cabinet over here. And you always ask me, what quality do you want it at, right? And that's what Brian's saying right now.
Yep.
So do you feel comfortable, no pressure at all, either one of you, talking about general price ranges? And of course it varies. Are we painting Cthulhu this big? Are we painting a dragon? Are we painting 28mm? But do you feel comfortable talking about prices? Because Noble Dwarf says, we have minis, we need to be done, never want the low end. How would you answer that?
I would answer that I charge $15 per hour with a 2-hour minimum. So most of the figures that I'm painting, all the ones that I have on my table right now, each one is going to be $30, and that gives you a decent tabletop figure. I'll put bases on it if you want, or any kind of terrain. But if you're looking at wanting more detail,
and to that point, by the way, Noble Dwarf has said, you've seen the map Alyssa's doing for us. You know the detail we want. So, like, your primo work.
Yeah, it all depends on how many hours they want me to put into it. I did a 75mm statue for a client that normally his commissions when he gives them to me are between like $200 or $300, but it's like, say, at least 10 or more figures. So this, when I did the sculpt, I put 20 hours into it, and this was, how many different washes I'm going to put in, how many different, colors that we're using, what kind of details does he want. He wanted the base painted to match it, and everything he wanted it to look like as close to the studio paint job that was on the box as possible. So that's where it comes into, well, that's how many hours I'm going to have to put into it, So, yeah, at least 20 hours that I wouldn't say that's the longest. I've put in on a few like 80 to 100 hours, depending on the type of detail that they wanted. So if they want like display quality and it's just going to sit on a shelf, I can do that. We'll just have to figure out how many hours they actually want me to do.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. It's a little bit like when someone has me say, how much does it cost for a map? Well, let's talk about what the map is. Let's talk about the detail level you want. What is the size? What are we actually drawing right now? I need a lot more information. That's fair. I mean, I can a lot of the time say my maps cost from $400 to $800, but sometimes they go way beyond that. This is an example that I'm working on right now, but I need to have a conversation. What about you, Brian?
So I don't normally work on an hourly rate because a lot of times I'm working stuff at the same time, and I don't. It's something for me personally. If I'm working on 3 or 4 different products that have the same color palette, I don't feel like I feel like I'm charging the same person. I'm charging everybody for the same time, and that's like there's something in the back of my head that kind of says that that's wrong. Which it probably isn't, and I'm sure there's probably people going, why would you not do that? Generally speaking, if it is at a tabletop level, if that's what someone's asking for, like I just want to be able to put this on the field and from arm's length away it looks good, I'll generally do about double the retail price of the model. That's actually a pretty good kind of gauge to go off of, because for the most part in the industry, the more expensive the model is, it's probably of a better quality. It probably has a better a better amount of detail. It might be larger. It's normally a pretty good rubric to go by, is about double retail for tabletop. If somebody wants more than that, like if it's like no, this this is our Fellowship of the Ring, I need to make sure that these guys all look fancy, I'll probably talk to them personally and work out a specific, let's take a look at these models. What do we need done? How much more do we need to put into it to get kind of the right price for my time and your time? How long your deadline takes into consideration. If somebody's like, I don't care when I see these back, I'll probably cut them a 10% discount off the top, because it means I'm not stressed out to make sure that it fits in my schedule at some particular time. But if I've got somebody who's like, no, I need them by I need this monster by next week because our game session, that's the big boss, and I need it because they're going to come fight him.
No, you never get requests like that. No.
It'll be one of those things where it's like, well, okay, then to kind of bump the queue, you're gonna pay a little bit, slight, almost like an excise tax. But for the most part, I would say that it just kind of goes off of a multiplier based off of the model's cost. I saw somewhere in the chat earlier, someone had said it was what's his name? It's like a box office hero or something.
Yeah, Box Office Jack.
Box Office Jack. He had said he had asked if we ever do like alterations to models. If someone sent me the bits and bobs and was like, hey, make a barbarian out of these parts. Absolutely. I generally, unless for sculpting, my sculpting services cost a little bit more than my painting services because it's a little more time consuming. But if it's just part of a model, I'll just tack on like a blank charge. Like if someone's like, hey, here's this cool model, can you throw a helmet and gauntlet on it? Or I had a guy who had a dwarf, like this kind of dwarf fighter, who apparently his dude had killed a displacer beast. So he was like, can you do a displacer beast like cloak on his back? And I was like, yeah, sure. That's not that hard. Just a bunch of arms and legs and tentacles and stuff. So it was like an extra $30-$40 just to tack that on and then.
And you sculpted that, did you?
Yeah.
Right on. Cool.
But yeah, for the most part, I'm pretty open about my pricing. I know there have been people in the industry, because I've sold sculpts to companies before, that they say that I'm too cheap. But I also know that there are people out there that are better than I am. So I 100% I don't hold a candle to John Popson and some of the other professional sculptors out there. I am a slightly more than amateur professional. If somebody's like, hey, I want this character with these details, I'll do it, and it'll be less than what a larger company will charge you. But you probably, if you wanted to throw the money down and get something really, really, really done right, I probably would say go to one of those that's all they do kind of people. In my opinion, as I ramble.
What about you, Tom? Do you do many alterations and stuff?
I've done like weapon swaps and head swaps and stuff like that. I don't get too much into the sculpting because I found out mostly when I was in high school, when I tried to sculpt anything, it just came out as a clay pot. So no, I can do some cloaks and things like that, but or I can resculpt scales and whatever, a lot of gap filling and whatnot.
You're willing to get into like, hey, I've got this miniature here, I want to put his head on this miniature over here, but take this and pin it to like this weapon over here.
To an extent, I can definitely do some customizations, and I have, but for most of the customers that I get, don't require stuff like that. They've already found the figure that they like, and this is what they want to go with. And if I do have somebody that's like, hey, is there any way that you can put, a long bow on their back, or can you change, change the sword out. I've got my bits box. I can finally find something that will work for him. I had one guy in my personal D&D game who was like the blade master, and so he wanted like a two-handed sword on his back, and he wanted two long swords in his hands, like two daggers on each side. And I found one that would work, and I remember having to drill the hand out, opening it up, putting a new sword into it, gluing it on. Created a a two-handed sword holder on the back so that I could put the actual great sword on his back. That's pretty much the closest that I've come with doing a lot of customization. He also had I think he said he had a glove on his right hand that was like the what's it called? Like the sword lock gauntlet.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So the sword can't fall out of your hand if you get whatever. So yeah, I kind of sculpted something on there with like straps and whatnot, but yeah, nothing super detailed. It was more fun to try.
That's cool. Like you did it for your local group, which makes it even better. Okay, so we're coming up to like the last 5 minutes, and I want to give you both an opportunity to kind of wrap and tell people how they can contact you. But before we get into that, final topic of conversation: wet palettes. Do you use them, and if so, what's your preferred brand? And homemade, it can be a chosen version here. Right. So, Brian, what do you use? I mean, I've used something like 3 or 4 different types. What do you use?
I've got my old privateer. I've had it for 6 or 7 years at this point. It was a little black clamshell privateer wet palette. I would say I use it about 50% of the time. If I'm doing just kind of general work, I
looks like that.
It looks just like that.
You two conspired before this. Nice.
But yeah, I'll get it out if I'm doing character work or if I'm doing a lot of detail work. But for the most part, I generally find that I can water down a brush or two worth to get me by. I'm normally good.
Gotcha. What about you, Tom?
Yeah, like I just showed, I've got the Privateer Press wet palette as well. I've probably used it maybe 10 times. Otherwise, I use the palette paper. I like this stuff. And again, kind of like Brian, if I can I'm only using like small amounts of paint anyway. By the time that I'm done using that paint, I've moved on and I'm painting something else. So if I'm doing a face, whatever, my paint stays wet enough. I don't tend to use it a whole lot. If I'm going to work on something larger, like a bust or like one of the 75 millimeter ones, I might break it out just so that I can have that paint around for a little bit longer because I'll be using it more and more.
Right. Just so for the level of transparency, I have used 2 ones. One from Red Grass Games, which I kickstarted a year or 2 ago, something like that. And it's been the best, but also the worst for me. It's pretty good. It actually does keep the paint wet even for weeks at a time. The one that I wanted to fall in love with was actually Scale 75's wet palette, because it had a great lid. When you opened it up, the lid had all of the little holes for putting like paint in or washes or whatever, and it had a separate piece that you would then put over like the foam and the whatever film you're using. It would like slot it over the top of that, and the whole thing was rubber sealed, and you just seal it up, and then it clipped. It was like Fort Knox. And that paint ran within 24 hours. Like, just saturated the whole thing. There was something wrong with whatever they had going on. And it pains me, because I actually really like the Scale 75 folks. I like what they do. And I wanted it to work, and it didn't. So I'm using Red Grass Games, and I hate those guys. But I'm using Red Grass Games right now. So what can you do?
I saw in the chat, Princess Striga actually asked Tom a question,
Yeah.
but then a follow-up question that I can help her with.
Well,
I
ask a
hope you don't
question,
mind.
let Tom answer, and then go for it. Let's do this thing.
Yeah.
Okay. She asked Tom if Tom makes minis, and if she wanted a Strahd von Zarovich from Ravenloft, could you make one?
Well, I could paint one, but I don't actually sculpt them. I know that there is a Strahd von Zarovich figure out there from Gale Force 9. It's their collector's edition, and he's riding a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to go back further, you could probably do like go on to what's it called?
I thought there were two others. Because I have two here from my local group, waiting to be painted.
There's a couple of them out there. There's the one from Gale Force 9. There's also, I mean, if you wanted to go further back, I think, what am I trying to think of? Oh, old Ralph. I think there's a Ralph Hartha, Strahd von Zarovich as well, from the 80s. I'm not sure, unless if you've got a couple, I'm not sure.
I was gonna say
which company that was.
There's been a couple of them, depending on whether or not she wanted him mounted, cape on, cape off. In like,
I don't know if you guys will be able to see this adequately, but that's not really very well focused. So these came from a friend, both are Strahd, different poses.
Looks like those are from the Nolzar's Marvelous Miniatures.
Mm-hmm.
Are they plastic, Alyssa?
They're plastic, yeah.
Yeah, I think those are from Nolzar's.
Nolzar's. All right,
Yeah.
so Princess,
Those
if you
are
haven't heard of that, Nolzar's.
Yeah, they're from the WizKids is the company.
Right,
Yeah,
and these are super detailed, actually. These are not bad at all. Like, I kind of want to paint them.
The WizKids pre-primed minis have made me reevaluate my pricing for a couple of clients because they're so cheap. They're awesome. They're amazing. They're amazing models. They're made. The actual like substance they're made of is fantastic.
That's what these are, man. That's exactly what these are. These are the pre-primed ones. Because when he handed them to me, I was like, really?
And so that blister of the blister that contains those two dudes is only like $8.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, well, I'm only saying that because it's Strahd. But like for most of them, it's like 2 for $5, or like the Beholder was like $9. They are so affordable and so amazing. They're the couple of clients I've had to talk to about those models who normally come to me and go, "Oh, hey, sure, I'll get this $8 figure for 2." No, I can't do that. They're amazing. And Princess Striga, if you can get your fingers on it or check on eBay and see if you can find one, they're super worth it. It's an awesome cut of a mini.
Yeah, and Princess, I'll actually send you photos of these after the stream, just so you can see them. They're kind of cool. They're kind of cool. I'm a bit snobby with what I'll paint, and when like my GM handed these to me, I was like, okay, I actually kind of want to paint them. That's cool. They're really quite nice. I think you'd like them.
Yeah, some of the Nolzar stuff is pretty well detailed. I think they do really well, especially on their monsters. I did the entire Townsfolk box set, and the details on those were okay. I actually would rather have them not come primed so I could do it myself, but that's just personal preference for me.
No, that's fine.
If there's a particular color of primer that you want, it goes over the top of it real easy. That like anodized priming that they use, it doesn't even make notice. It's fine. You can prime over it. 2 things. Striga said, "Can you guys recommend someone that can sculpt minis?" Yeah, me. But depending on what you want, I would love to talk to you. That would be awesome. But I also wanted to show you, I mentioned that I am at a point where I can use the Lucky Varnish and show you how it just kind of sits on.
Yeah.
So here we go. We got Frigga here from the Gods of Asgard in Blood Rage. I'm going to slather a brush full of lucky sauce all over. Literally, I am not. Don't even care. Dripping it all over my body because I'm not like it's running down my arm because it doesn't pool. It's so thin, and where it does pool, it will evaporate all within the next 20 minutes.
Oh,
or so.
when you're saying I don't care, slather it all on, it's going down my arm, not your arm.
No, I was getting it
Because
down
I feel like it's that Ben Stiller film where they're spraying each other with gasoline right now. I'm like, wow, Brian does not care.
This stuff is, you can be almost completely careless with it. I've never had it cool to the point where it's visible afterwards. It will always eventually evaporate out.
Wow.
That's really
pretty cool stuff.
All right, guys. So, guys, we're coming up to the end of the stream, and I really want to thank you both for being with us. You both are awesome. I would actually love to invite you back and just talk about the different things that you've been painting. But for our guests, please thank these two wonderful gentlemen for being here. They're honestly industry top level professional painters, and hit them up with your thanks, okay? But Brian, how can people find you if they need to contact you afterwards?
I am at Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at BryanCP_STEELE. I was able to get them all my name, no numbers or anything weird. And then my weekly YouTube show is Tales from a Professional Nerd. If you search it out, I've got 50 some odd videos up so far, and I do one every week. And sometimes they go off the rails, and you get to see a part of me that others don't because I've had lack of sleep.
But they work. So Brian CP STEELE with an E on the end, okay?
Yes.
That literally you can find him everywhere under that, or Tales from the what, Brian?
Tales from a Professional Nerd.
On YouTube, okay? Go over there, hit him up with a sub. It costs you nothing. That's how you find him. So, Tom, Midwest Miniatures Guy, Nelson, how do people find you?
Well, they can find me on Facebook at Midwest Miniature Guy. Twitter, I think it's a Midwest Mini Guy. Also on Instagram, I think that's the same name there. If they want to contact me, they can email me at midwestminiatureguy at gmail.com, or they can send me a message on Facebook. Those are probably the two best ways to do it. I answer pretty quickly and get back to them as fast as I can. So I also do, like I said before, I do a live stream every Sunday night where I sit down, paint figures, and take questions.
And it's a good stream, everyone. You should check it out. I've actually watched Brian and I've watched Tom. Both are incredibly knowledgeable, gifted, and entertaining. You should go check them both out. And if you struggle after the stream to find them, just get in touch with me. Most of you know where to find me on Facebook, okay? Just PM me and I'll shuffle you towards them, okay? They're awesome human beings. So if there is nothing further from everyone, I want to thank Brian. I want to thank Tom. We're kind of like triplets with now the GaryCon Dragon. I feel kind of bonded with these guys a little bit. I love them. They're awesome humans. This has been a great stream. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
I'm back tomorrow, by the way, everyone. Back on Thursday, we're going to continue the colouring here on this map, which I was doing a little bit in the background while there wasn't these two awesome freaking dragons covering the whole canvas. So back tomorrow, same time. Thanks, everyone.